In many popular narratives, we encounter the themes of fear of loss and excessive attachment. A classic example is William Shakespeare's story of Romeo and Juliet. In this plot, two young lovers from rival families find themselves involved in a forbidden love. The fear of loss and the deep attachment they feel for each other lead them to tragic decisions, culminating in their premature deaths. The extreme fear of losing a loved one and excessive attachment result in devastating consequences. Analyzing this story from the perspective of Stoic philosophy, we can extract valuable lessons. Stoicism teaches the importance of understanding and accepting what is beyond our control, including the loss of loved ones. If Romeo and Juliet had incorporated Stoic principles into their worldview, perhaps they would have realized that, despite their intense love, accepting the possibility of separation and focusing on the value of each moment together might have been a wiser approach. Stoic philosophy, a school of thought that values resilience and self-control, offers a unique perspective on human relationships, especially concerning attachment and loss. According to this philosophy, cultivating intense attachments to external factors, which are beyond our domain, such as relationships with other individuals, can be a direct route to discontentment. Epictetus, one of the most prominent Stoics, argued that aspiring to the eternity of our loved ones is an exercise in desiring the undesirable, as it is a longing to control the uncontrollable. However, it is indisputable that pain and suffering arise when we face the loss of someone close. Grief, with its overwhelming intensity, is often a manifestation of love and attachment. Stoic philosophy does not disregard these emotions, but suggests that many of our reactions to grief can be the result of an irrational view of life and death. In this context, we approach attachment and loss from the Stoic perspective, exploring how the separation from those we love impacts our lives. We attach to people in various ways, ranging from simple affection to an obsession that can be harmful. This desire to maintain someone's constant presence in our lives and the fear of their absence are common phenomena. But they challenge our understanding of the nature of human relationships and how we manage the experience of losing and separating. This narrative leads us to a deep reflection on the complexity of human bonds and how the Stoics propose to face the inevitable, loss and separation. In a language that is accessible yet rich and reflective, we seek to awaken curiosity and interest in a broad age range, from 14 to 50 years old, inviting everyone to an introspective and enlightening journey about love, loss, and the wisdom of dealing with both. The emotional depth of intense attachment, with its ramifications and consequences, is a topic that resonates in various narratives, both historical and fictional. Often, the intensity of this attachment exacerbates emotional problems as it subjects our happiness to the whim of fate. Stoic philosophy sheds light on this issue, highlighting how attachment to elements outside our control, whether objects or people, makes us vulnerable to the fluctuations of fortune and chance. Fortune, the personification of luck and destiny, then dictates the highs and lows of our existence, alternating between moments of contentment and despair. A notable example of this dynamic is portrayed in the saga of Anakin Skywalker, an iconic character in fiction. Anakin, in his journey, betrays the Jedi Order and turns to the dark side, driven by a desperate desire to keep Padme in his life. The Stoic view interprets Anakin as an individual who lost his freedom to unrestrained desires. Instead of being guided by reason, he is consumed by turbulent emotions like fear, hatred, and jealousy, thus becoming a prisoner of fate and a puppet in the hands of circumstances. This example highlights how intense and uncontrolled attachment can lead to a path of self-destruction and loss of personal freedom. Stoic philosophy suggests that instead of being dominated by such attachments, we should cultivate rationality and serenity, accepting that certain aspects of life are beyond our control. By doing so, we can achieve a form of inner freedom and emotional resilience, which allows us to face the whims of fate with balance and wisdom. At the heart of this discussion is the notion that our efforts to keep people to whom we are attached in our lives can be essentially a selfish endeavor. This perspective suggests that often we seek the company of others not out of altruism or for the collective good, but to satisfy a personal desire, a will to not detach from what we value. In this process, guided by our self-interest, we risk making unwise decisions, focusing solely on gratifying our desires. Epictetus, with his characteristic clarity, observes how easily we cultivate negative feelings, such as hatred and resentment, against everything that seems to counter our personal interests. This tendency is vividly illustrated in the trajectory of Anakin Skywalker, whose actions, motivated by selfish desires, culminate in death and destruction. Epictetus's reflection also highlights that human nature has an innate inclination to prioritize self-interest, placing it above everything, including family, country, and even divinity. When we perceive that the gods, for example, can interfere in our interests, we may go to extremes, such as insulting them or destroying their temples, something historically attributed to Alexander the Great. This Stoic perspective emphasizes the importance of understanding and moderating our attachments, seeking a balance between love and rationality. The idea that instead of losing someone, we are actually returning them is a way of recognizing that ultimately no one is truly owned by us. This thought is reflected in Alexander's reaction to the death of a loved one, which led him to destroy temples, demonstrating how intense attachments can lead to extreme behaviors. Stoic philosophy invites us to reflect on the nature of our attachments and the importance of approaching them with a balanced perspective, combining emotion and reason. By doing so, we can achieve a state of serenity and wisdom, dealing more healthily with the inevitable losses and changes in life. Romantic love and other types of intense attachment to elements outside our control are often seen through the lens of Stoic philosophy as potential precursors to misfortunes. This view is based on the observation that such attachments throughout human history have been the cause of conflicts, violence, and even murders. The intense emotions that accompany romantic love and other similar attachments can, when not properly managed, lead to disproportionate and destructive reactions. In the face of losses, whether the death of a friend, the end of a romantic relationship, or rejection by a child, many experience a feeling of having something of personal value torn from them. This reaction is understandable, given the depth and complexity of human relationships. However, Stoic philosophy offers a different approach to these events. According to it, we do not lose people. We are simply returning them to the universe, as we never truly owned them. This perspective suggests that we should understand relationships as temporary and beyond our absolute control. This Stoic view is not an invitation to total detachment or emotional indifference, but rather a call to understanding and acceptance that the nature of life is ephemeral and unpredictable. By recognizing that people and relationships are not our property, we can embrace a form of love and attachment that is free of possessiveness and unrealistic expectations. Instead of fixating on the idea of loss, this perspective encourages us to value the time and experiences shared, accepting changes and separations as natural parts of existence. Adopting this Stoic view can help moderate the intensity of our emotional reactions to losses, allowing us to handle them in a more balanced and serene manner. By doing so, we open the door to a deeper understanding that, while we cannot control all aspects of our lives, we can choose how to respond to them. If you're enjoying this, don't miss out on the opportunity. Purchase the ebook now, Stoicism in the 21st Century, Ancient Strategies for Modern Challenges, and unlock your prosperity, abundance, and improve your relationships with this ebook. Link in the pinned comment. Epictetus, in his profound reflections presented in the fourth book of his Discourses, addresses a central issue of Stoic philosophy: the relationship with external factors, including close people such as children, family, or spouses. He argues that such elements, being beyond our control, are not truly ours. This idea highlights the ephemeral nature of most goods we value, which can be lost at any moment. In Epictetus' time, slavery was a socially accepted reality, and people were literally owned as property. Although in modern times slavery is widely condemned and rejected, there are still remnants of this ownership mentality towards people in our lives. Often, we expect friends and family to dedicate time and attention, employees to fulfill their obligations promptly, and spouses to act according to our preferences. This expectation, though more subtle and socially acceptable than slavery, still reflects a certain degree of attachment and demand. Stoic philosophy encourages us to recognize and accept that we do not have total control over other people. This understanding is seen as essential for achieving a state of emotional balance and rationality in life. By disentangling ourselves from these attachments and expectations, we pave the way for greater inner peace and an enhanced ability to deal with inevitable changes and losses. Stoic teaching suggests that instead of clinging to unrealistic expectations and a false sense of control over others, we should cultivate acceptance and understanding that each person has their own autonomy and freedom. This shift in perspective not only frees us from the frustrations and disappointments often associated with unmet expectations, but also allows us to more genuinely appreciate the relationships we have, valuing them for what they are, not for what we would like them to be. The perception that the people we love and care for are an extension of ourselves and that they somehow form an integral part of our lives is a common feeling. However, under the prism of Stoic philosophy, this conception is considered a fundamental mistake. Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, argues that external elements to our own essence, including other people, are never truly ours. If we truly had ownership over other people, as Epictetus suggests, they would always behave according to our wishes and expectations, would never leave us, and would be beyond the reach of being influenced or taken by others. However, reality shows that people act according to their own will and circumstances, often in ways that do not match our expectations or desires. Therefore, the notion that we have some kind of ownership or absolute control over other beings is, in the Stoic view, an illusion incompatible with the true nature of things. This Stoic perspective invites us to reflect on the nature of our relationships and to reconsider our approach towards the people around us. Instead of viewing others as properties or extensions of ourselves, Stoic philosophy suggests that we should recognize and respect the autonomy and independence of each individual. By doing this, we can establish healthier and more balanced relationships based on mutual respect and understanding rather than possession and control. Accepting this reality does not imply indifference or lack of care, but rather a more mature and realistic approach to human relationships. By embracing this view, we can free ourselves from many of the frustrations and disappointments caused by unrealistic expectations and learn to value people and relationships for what they truly are and not for what we would like them to be. Epictetus, one of the exponents of Stoic philosophy, proposes a deep reflection on the nature of human control over life's aspects. He questions the idea that we possess control over elements such as our body, properties, material possessions like clothes and houses, and even our loved ones. According to Epictetus, all these elements are subject to the vicissitudes and transformations of the universe, being beyond the true reach of human control unless one possesses divine powers. In regards to romantic love, often described and idealized as a passionate experience, loaded with intense emotions and volatile experiences, modern society frequently glorifies this emotional state, considering it one of the pinnacles of human experience. However, for the Stoics of antiquity, passions were viewed in a more problematic light, mainly because they can distort judgment and lead to thoughtless or irrational decisions. This Stoic approach presents an interesting counterpoint to the contemporary view on relationships and emotions. It challenges us to reconsider our relationship with the external world, suggesting that instead of overly attaching ourselves and trying to exercise control over aspects beyond our domain, we should focus on what is within our control, our own reactions, emotions, and judgments. This does not imply total detachment or a lack of love and care for the people and things we value. On the contrary, this Stoic perspective encourages us to understand and approach our relationships in a more balanced and rational manner, recognizing and accepting impermanence and uncertainty as inherent aspects of human existence. This Stoic view guides us to cultivate a form of emotional resilience, where serenity and clarity of judgment prevail over the whims of volatile emotions. By adopting this stance, we can enjoy healthier and more satisfying relationships, fully appreciating them but without the anguish and suffering that often accompany excessive attachment and the pursuit of control over the uncontrollable. The 4 types of passions identified by the Stoics are explored: pleasure, appetite, distress, and fear. These passions are intrinsically linked to attachment, especially when it comes to deep love. When we are in the presence of a dear friend, we experience pleasure. In their absence, we feel an appetite for their company. The fear of losing someone we love is constant, and distress arises when that person leaves us or dies. According to Stoic philosophy, passions are preceded by irrational judgments about the situation. There is nothing inherently good or bad in someone's presence or absence, in loss or death. These are, at best, neutral conditions of life. When we irrationally judge these situations as good or bad, we trigger passions, as our thinking is not aligned with reason. The Stoics, then, seek to eliminate passions through the use of reason. Epictetus advises starting with small things, like a pot or a cup, and gradually progressing to items of greater emotional value, such as family members. This process of detachment aims to purify judgments, preventing us from becoming overly attached to things that are not truly ours, and that can cause pain when lost. The story of Romeo and Juliet vividly illustrates the struggle between reason and passion. In this classic, Romeo and Juliet face an intense emotional dilemma, where the passion of forbidden love collides with the rational realities of their rival families. Juliet, at various times, tries to consider the situation rationally, understanding the complex consequences of her love. On the other hand, Romeo is often driven by passion, struggling to balance his intense feelings with logic and common sense. This narrative highlights the challenge of balancing intense emotions with reason. While Stoic philosophy advocates for the primacy of reason over passions, in real life, many people find it difficult to follow this path, especially in romantic relationships and deep attachments. Stoicism offers a perspective for understanding and managing these emotions, but applying it in practice requires a significant commitment to self-awareness and self-discipline. Shakespeare's tragedy, Romeo and Juliet, serves as a classic representation of the human conflict between emotion and reason. This narrative vividly illustrates how intense emotions can cloud judgment leading to impulsive actions and, in the case of Romeo and Juliet, a tragic outcome. The story also underlines the need to seek a balance between passion and logic, a lesson that resonates deeply for those aspiring to harmonize their emotional and rational lives. From a Stoic viewpoint, the question of whether it is possible to renounce intense attachments to other people and endure the loss of loved ones is approached with an affirmative answer, but also with caution. Seneca, one of the great names of Stoicism, discusses this issue extensively in his letters, emphasizing the importance of mindset, discipline, and constant practice to achieve such detachment. However, this does not imply that a Stoic should remain impassive in the face of loss. Maintaining equanimity after the death of someone close is undoubtedly a great challenge, and Stoic philosophy recognizes the complexity of this task. Ancient Stoic sages like Epictetus, Chrysippus, and Seneca, although seeking liberation from passions, were also aware of the difficulties inherent in this process. It's important to note, Stoics introduce the concept of proto-emotions, automatic and involuntary emotional reactions, like shock in the face of danger or tears upon receiving sad news. Stoicism does not propose the repression of these proto-emotions, as they are seen as natural responses and beyond our immediate control. What Stoic philosophy seeks is liberation from the passions that can arise from irrational thoughts subsequent to these proto-emotions. Thus, Stoicism does not preach insensitivity or indifference towards emotions, but rather a balanced approach in which we recognize and accept our initial emotions while working to prevent them from leading us to irrational judgments and actions. This view provides a basis for facing the emotional challenges of life with serenity and discernment, properly balancing the heart and the mind. One of Seneca's letters offers an interesting perspective on how to deal with the pain of loss. In 41 AD, after being accused of adultery by the Empress Messalina, a dubious accusation for some historians, Seneca was initially sentenced to death by the Senate. However, Emperor Claudius commuted the sentence to exile. Seneca then went to the island of Corsica, where he spent 8 years. During his exile, he wrote a letter to his mother, Helvia, offering consolation as she coped with her son's absence. Seneca advised her not to indulge in unlimited grief. He mentioned that the ancestors established a 10-month mourning period for widows, thus limiting their suffering. He stated that while it is imprudent to indulge in endless mourning for the loss of a loved one, it is also insensitive not to express any pain. The ideal is to find a balance, allowing oneself to feel the pain, but also restricting it. Thus it seems that Seneca advocated a middle course, to suffer in a moderate and limited way. This approach to grief is different from the ideal described by Epictetus, who proposes being an impassioned individual, undisturbed by the loss of loved ones. However, most people, including Seneca's mother, are not Stoic sages and will naturally experience sadness. Seneca offers a more realistic path to dealing with loss, not the total elimination of passions, but their moderation. He encouraged his mother to take responsibility for her own emotional well-being, engaging in the study of philosophy and dedicating herself to it. "This will heal your wounds and alleviate your sorrow," he wrote. If you liked it, subscribe. Thank you for watching.